Yeah, wisdom. Okay. And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, June the 27th, and this is our Sisters Healing and Evolving She Healthy Woman segment for the month of June with the wonderful Miss Phyllis Booz, owner and health educator of My Heart's Desire Consulting LLC here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we are excited that you have taken the time to join us tonight as we have just candid conversation on triggers as a follow up to our May segment for mental health. Month and mental health awareness month. So, Phyllis, I'm excited that you are with us today. As the people are coming in the room, we ask that you would share this video so that it would be this live stream, so it would be a blessing to others. We ask that you share it and like it. And definitely, if you have any questions, we're going to keep it brief tonight due to the inclement weather. We want to make sure that we do share information. We want to make sure that we're always providing knowledge, access, and support to the resources that we need, especially when it comes to our health. So we are going to keep it brief tonight and shorten the episode tonight due to the weather. That way we don't lose power because both of us have been having our power go in and out. But we did want to make sure that we come on and share some information. And so I'm just excited. Phyllis, once again, we welcome you to Sisters Healing and Evolving She Healthy Woman segment. And please, once again, introduce yourself and share with the people how they can reach you and what services you have available.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chandrell. I am excited again, as usual, to be here. My name, as she said, is Phyllis Booz, and I am the founder of My Heart's Desire Consulting and Services and Wellness Company. And basically, we are advocating for healthy change. We educate, we equip, and we empower individuals and companies throughout the community with essential health information, awareness, education, and strategies. We want to prevent some of our health issues that we're having. So we also are involved in the movement. We make sure that individuals that want to move, whether or not they have chronic illnesses or have limited mobility, have opportunities to move their body. And so we are excited about just reaching out in the community in many ways. And this topic is one in mental health. That is one that I have pursued for a while because, there's something in mental health that says um, you have lived experience. And I think that's what we really need to really talk about, because a lot of times especially in the Black community, we don't want to talk about our lived experiences, but it's through our lived experiences that we sharing with others and we face it, that we can manage the triggers and we can find out the coping mechanisms. And so this is just going to be an opportunity for us to kind of look at it. I'm going to share some things that even in my own personal life that has caused me to look at the triggers and to recognize them. So that's what we're doing tonight.
I am excited. So let's start the conversation. Phyllis, what is a trigger? Now, I have researched and looked it up, and it's basically a stressor. And it's due to past experience or trauma. And it could be anything from as simple as a phrase, a smell,
Mm-hmm.
a touch, or just an environment. Give us the actual medical term or the educated term for what a trigger is and what we should look for.
Well, no, you actually hit it right on the head. That is the quote unquote definition. It's a stimulus. It's a stimulus that really it's a stimulus that kind of elicits a reaction, if you will. And so, like you said, regardless, it could be a touch, it could be a smell. We all have had that family member, that grandma, that aunt, that neighbor who we know when we smell her fried chicken,
Mhm.
we are like, oh, it's gonna be a good day. When we wake up to breakfast smelling in the morning, it elicits some great feelings. But at the same time, some smells can also trigger some negative emotions, some negative feelings based on what was happening. So if you were in a household, let's just say that was an abusive household, and in the mornings when your mother was making coffee and your father would come in and he would start ranting and raving, and so you associate coffee with the abusive behavior. So anytime you smell coffee, it triggers that memory. Okay. So
Mhm.
it is the definition that you have is right on point. It's that it's the thing that stimulates me. When I have a trigger, when I have something that is hitting my emotional bank, it triggers in my ears. My ears will start tingling first. And
Wow.
so, yeah, and that's when I know that that particular stressor is about to happen. Okay. Some people, it could be they're riding around in cars, and it's why we have so much road rage. Someone cuts them off, we're triggered. We can have a traumatic experience, whether it's a trauma, maybe a car accident. Sometimes people are not able to even go back to driving a car because anytime they get in a car, or if they smell gas, or they come to a stoplight and they remember the trauma, that can be a trigger, and that trigger will begin to manifest in our bodies in different ways, and it's different for everybody. So this trigger, the one thing I really want everyone to kind of think about is it's different for everybody. A trigger is different for everybody. There is no scientific thing that's going to say, yes, when you feel this and you see this, this is going to be the 100% thing that's going to happen. This is how you're going to respond, because my experience is going to be different than your experience. Okay.
Yes.
Thing, and so that's what we have to kind of remember when we're thinking about triggers is different. If we want to help someone, if we want to help ourselves, sometimes we underestimate our triggers, but our triggers can shut down a lot if we don't have control over it.
Yes, yes. And like you said, I'm glad you touched on that. And triggers are different, they're individual.
Hmm.
Um, triggers for each and every different person, because like you said, even though the you may have experienced similar have similar experiences, your triggers could be different. And so it is important that we know what our triggers are, because we need to prevent them or to reduce them to better manage our mental health, our
Hmm.
emotional health, our physical health, because triggers can manifest themselves physically as well.
Hmm.
Um, and like you were saying, your ears tingling. Well, for some people, it could be, a headache, a back pain,
Hmm.
or it could be any number of things. But we need to make sure that we are looking at different situations and taking mental note of recording, when certain
Yes.
things happen, so we can better manage our triggers, so we can easily identify what our triggers
Hmm.
are and quickly recognize them. So I'm excited
Yeah.
that, I'm just glad that you broke it down that way, to let us know that one is individual, and two, they
Hmm.
manifest themselves in different ways. So
Right.
why is it important that we um, be able to easily recognize our triggers, and understand how it affects us in that manner?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because number one, we want to be in control of, a lot of times when something, because something can trigger you and you don't even realize that it's a trigger. You just know that, oh yeah, that's how she responds. And it becomes a norm. And so, if it's a negative behavior, it's not normal. Okay. And you have to see it as that. You have to recognize the fact that certain emotions, certain issues, certain circumstances, when they arise, you have an automatic pattern of responding. Some people will just be very calm and it won't affect them, but some people automatically begin to either act out, or they'll get nervous, there'll be anxiety, it could be um, use of, somebody may even self-medicate, so they get a certain feeling and they don't know what to do with that feeling. Okay. Take anxiety. So when a person goes through an anxiety attack, a lot of times you don't know what to do with all of these emotions, and then the body starts feeling, you can get a headaches, you can, your stomach, digestive system issues, your breath starts to be rapid, your respirations are rapid, you're just kind of all over the place. And anxiety is different for everybody as well, but those are some of the common ones. And so you feel out of control, when you don't have a hold and a handle on what triggers you, and then how to handle the trigger once it happens. Like, say, for instance, when I know that I'm at the edge of something that has triggered me, when I'm beginning to feel triggered. One of the things that happens to me frequently is I get my focus goes out, I go out of focus, and my hands get weak.
Mm.
And so, and I, because it's a over, something is overwhelming my sensories. Okay. When you think of a trigger, it's sight, it's sound, it's speech, it's, it's all of your sensories. And so for me, I get overwhelmed with a thought, and physically it manifests in the
Mm.
feeling in the ears. And then I notice I have, poor motor skills. And at first I was like, I don't know, what is this? I'm thinking, maybe I got to go get tested for Parkinson's disease, or, multiple sclerosis and all these things.
Oh,
But
goodness.
then, but then I started seeing a pattern. When something happens in this area, you feel this way. And then you begin to get out of control. So being able to recognize your trigger, being able to stop, assess, then act or respond will help you to control it, and you'll be in more control. You may be able to do it by yourself, and you may need someone also to help you. Just depends. So yeah. So did I answer the question?
You did. You actually did. And you covered. You really hit the different types of triggers: external, internal trauma,
Hmm. Hmm.
symptoms as well. So it's and this is a good conversation because we don't really talk about the triggers.
Yeah.
Um, and preventing triggers. We always talk about, what to do after we have been
Hmm.
triggered, which is like in response to the trigger. And sometimes it's very difficult to
Hmm.
recover from the trigger or to rise above the emotions because the emotions are so negative and they're overwhelming. It
Hmm.
can render you powerless to rise
Yeah.
above that trigger. So I'm excited about that. You're just giving us the basic information and the knowledge to know, listen, it's important to acknowledge and to know our
Hmm.
triggers. Jackie Jerome is saying it is also important to know what's going on so that we don't go through life ruining
Ooh,
relationships with
yeah.
myself or with others.
Yes. Yeah.
Excuse me. That is very important, Jackie, and I thank you for sharing that because
Yeah.
if we, as you said, those triggers, every time someone comes around us and it's been a negative experience, yes, we can carry that from one relationship to
Yeah.
another, and it could cause us self harm. As you said, not
Yeah.
only with the physical, the emotional, but with the
Hmm.
anxiety, but just feeling attacked. We can,
Hmm.
when you've been triggered, you can feel attacked, you can feel
Hmm.
powerless, you can feel fear.
Yeah.
You are not really in sound judgment to
Right.
make a good decision on what to do next because you're in kind of a fight or flight mode, so to
Exactly.
speak. So yeah, recognizing and understanding triggers is very key to managing our mental health.
Yeah.
It's
And,
very
and
key.
yeah, and if I can add, and to Jackie's point, the relationships, and it's not so much all the time that that person has
Mhm.
done something to us. It could be just that internal thing we have in ourselves. Because when you are having triggers, it could be because of rejection.
Mhm.
So although that person that you're dealing with, may let's say it is a new relationship, that person didn't reject you, but because there's something in the back of your past where you felt rejection, something that person may say or do, or you just may have a suspicion, then rejection will make you shy back. It'll make you withdraw. Betrayal, you might feel like you were unjustly treated.
Mhm.
Um, you know being excluded or being ignored. I know one of the things that God really had to help me with a couple of years ago, back in 2016 and 17, was the spirit of an orphan. And I never even thought of spirit of an orphan, and I heard it one time and I thought, oh, okay, well, that's just something cute to say in the spiritual world. And then I heard it two other times, because you gotta watch what you hear, right? So I heard it
Mhm.
two other times, having the spirit of an orphan. So for me, the trigger, Something about being alone in a sense, feeling as if there was no belonging. That feeling of not belonging to anyone or to anything or to any group caused a spirit of orphan, made me feel like I didn't belong. So when I got into other relationships with people, that impacted how I interacted with people. And so let's just say something happened in a relationship. Well, yeah, my immediate response is to withdraw, to feel insecure, to defend. So that's when you're dealing with talking about relationships, is not just because that person may have done something directly to you, but triggers impact you for all relationships pretty much. And I would say they can have an impact on all relationships if
Mhm.
you're not aware of them, and if you don't have control, if you are not seeking help. Because that's the biggest thing. Sometimes we try to do this thing all by ourselves. We try to understand it. We try to cope. I know, but I got you. Help.
Mhm.
There are therapists out there. Licensed therapy. Get some help. Talk to someone about these triggers, because you want to be free. You want to be free to live, and have your being in Christ Jesus. So be free of that. Know what your triggers are, and it's okay. Um,
Mhm.
the more we can identify what our triggers are, we are able to take dominion over what the enemy is trying to steal from us. Because just
All right.
face it, anything anything that's negatively impacting our lives is the enemy really trying to take a stronghold, so that we don't do what God has called us to do. Yeah. And Jackie says she found it hard to even receive helpful criticism from others. It triggers my feelings of being rejected. Absolutely. So we oftentimes thinking of triggers as trauma, which it is there, but a feeling of rejection can keep you from even receiving good counsel from people. It can make you step back.
Mhm.
So us talking about it, us being able to recognize it in other people. We want to be very empathetic when someone is triggered, or they're going, they're showing some outside manifestations of something. We got to think, hmm, what could that be? Is there something that could be triggering them to respond a certain way? We want to have empathy. We want to ask questions, be curious. That's one thing we really, we don't want to, don't want to get in people's business. We got that mindset. We don't want to get in people's business, but really we got to be
Yeah.
curious about, hey, even saying, hey, I noticed that you responded a certain way. Um, I'm just wondering, is this something that has happened before? Is there something I did that brought this about? People are very open and can be very open when you come out of the judgment seat and
Yes.
just talk to them and ask them questions, letting them know that you really are curious about what is it that, pretty much, if we would just ask someone, what, I, when someone has a negative response, instead of getting all up in our own flesh, how about we say,
Mm.
I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about you. I feel that, this particular circumstance caused something to change in you. Is there anything that I can say or do? You know, is there something that makes this feel better? Okay. We can ask questions to help people see that, let them step back and say, yeah, I did kind of respond. I was triggered. I
Right.
was triggered, and sometimes it is, emotional, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's medical. Okay. I used
Mhm.
to have an officer, training officer, who, anytime he would get up and teach in front of a class, he would curse the whole entire class out. I mean,
Oh my
clockwork.
goodness.
And I would say, sir, you can't do that, right? And it was just one stupid question in his mind. He would say that was a stupid question. One stupid question he thought, and it would trigger him. Okay. So I almost fired him, almost, because
Wow.
it was not acceptable. But guess what? He was a diabetic and didn't know it.
Wow.
He was a diabetic. So when he would get up and teach, his blood sugars would drop. He would get irritable, and he would just flat out just, it was a trigger. But he got the help he needed, and I didn't have to fire him. And that
Mhm.
was it.
Well, that was a good thing.
That was a
And
good
most
thing.
importantly, that he got the help that he needed. And
Right.
like you said, and Sevilla Ann is saying, my believing that I'm an introvert, does that have anything to do with my triggers?
Yeah. Well, let me ask
It
this.
could, possibly.
How do you what are your thoughts about you being an introvert? See, if you think something negatively about being an introvert, it very well could. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, what do I think about being do I think an introvert is less than someone that's an extrovert? Because you look at an extrovert, they're like, "Yeah, let's do it. We're good. Yes, I okay, we're on it." Then you look at yourself and you might be a little bit more reserved. So how do you view that extrovert compared to how do you view yourself? So I am an introvert, believe it or not, I am. I am an introvert. I was painfully shy growing up, but when I teach and when I speak, that goes away, but it comes back. But I don't look at extroverts in a way where it's like I wish I was more like them, because I find value in my introvertness. I find value in my ability to reflect. Now, if there's something that you are wishing to do and wanting to do, where you were wanting to be a little bit more outgoing, well, we got classes for that. We can teach you that. But are you okay in your heart and your mind with being an introvert? Because see, God created you. He knew that soft heart was needed inside of you. He knew that your reflectiveness, not everybody have to be, you know, out there. Everybody has a gift, and your gift is sufficient, and your gift may be your introvertness, because the people that you need to touch in this life may need that personality, that introvert.
This is a great conversation. We know that the Bible tells us that we must guard our heart and guard
Mhm,
our ears and our eyes,
mhm,
which are the gateway to our soul. And I'm
mhm,
paraphrasing that, but we know that. And so it's important, it's kind of, it just falls right in line with knowing our triggers. We
mhm,
have to guard ourselves, our mental state, our emotional state, our physical state against these triggers. And so share with us some of the ways that we can prevent or reduce triggers.
mhm. Okay, so number one, and this is going to go across the board for many health conditions, and many people don't take this into consideration. Go to bed.
Mm.
Go to bed. Yep.
Oh,
Yep. Go to bed. Get some sleep. Adults should be getting
wow.
between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And I know there are a few, some people I know very close to us within this realm that might only get 2 hours of sleep on a regular basis and still can function. But for the most part, we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Sleep allows our bodies to heal at night. Sleep allows us to process what has happened to us the previous day. And so when you allow your body a chance to rest and reflect and kind of get rid of the toxins through the day, whether it's mental toxins to external environmental toxins, you're giving your body a fair chance to fight. So when you're sleepy, when you have lack of sleep, you're going to be on a short wick, and so your ability for those triggers to happen, they're going to happen. We all already spoke about talking to someone. If you don't have someone close to you to talk to, definitely elicit a therapist. If you're not able to secure a therapist financially, most companies have the Employee Assistance Program, EAP. Absolutely. I've had an EAP counselor. I've had the same one for 8 years, actually. And she's wonderful, and she's just a part of my life. Is that relationship. So your EAP counselor, you get, most companies, you get 6 sessions, 6 free sessions a year of therapy. Okay. And you
Mhm.
just may need to check in. Sometimes I just say, hey, I need to make a decision and I'm not quite sure if I'm thinking on the right track, and I can call her. Or sometimes it's something traumatic happened. And so your EAP is a wonderful resource. It is confidential. Your employer does not get the information, doesn't get copies of the note, of your EAP counselor's information. Now, if you were told to go by your employer for whatever reason, then that's the only way your employer knows why you're going. Other than that, it's confidential, and it has been a tremendous help throughout the years. So your EAP counseling, eating well, making sure that you are balanced in your eating is going to help out greatly. A lot of times, even though we're not always diagnosed with, like, say, diabetes, our blood sugars drop, and that could be a trigger. So those are some. Definitely some other coping skills would be, me and my breathing exercises. If you
It
don't
was
do anything
wonderful.
else, if you don't do anything else, definitely elicit some breathing exercises. The more you exercise your body, move your body, you're going to release the endorphins in your brain. You're going to be able to have something to accomplish, because your body is in attack mode when its immune system is broken down. So you want to be able to move your body, get things rolling in your body that actually can fight for you, okay, mentally and physically. So moving your body is critical. It doesn't have to be a 90-minute workout. You don't have to go to the gym. You can just dance in your house. You can do stretches in your house. You can walk in your house, up the steps, down the driveway, 15 minutes. And if you begin to move and exercise 15 minutes, you will start seeing some mental changes. It is scientific. Our brain grows with the more exercise that we do. And so our triggers that happens, our nervous system, it comes from our brain to our body. Our brain tells our body what to do. And so exercising is definitely going to be a major thing. I always have on hand different essential oils that I love to inhale or just have in the environment. That helps my triggers. That helps me when I feel like I'm being triggered. But the biggest thing is some mindfulness, and I think we overuse the word mindfulness, but it is very important for you to be mindful of what your triggers are, mindful of your capability of
Mhm.
coping with it. If you're at a point where you've not arrived yet in managing that thing, know
Mm,
that it's okay, and seek help, but be
exactly.
true about where you are with it until you can grow into having the coping mechanisms and skills. Because we automatically, when we're triggered, we automatically go to that negative response. We remember, our brain remembers, our body remembers it. It just is, if we can remember the good stuff is easy, that would be so great. But we remember the negative things that happen so quickly. So it does take a moment to stop and to think and reflect. So mindfulness is really about reflecting, not only on what's going on and noticing how certain things are having an impact on your physical body and your emotional body, you know,
Mm.
but also being mindful about what your thoughts about it and how you are getting ready to respond. If we just reflect on that and reflect on, if I do this, if I do A, then Z
Mm.
is going to happen. Is that something I really want? Is that an action? Just so being mindful and slowing down. We're too fast. We're too quick to respond. And of course, we got to pray. We got to
Absolutely.
pray. Your Father, our Heavenly Father, will help us in our time of need. He is there. All we have to do is say, Abba, Father. All we have to do is say, help me. All we have to do sometimes is just moan, and he is there. So, there are so many techniques. You can Google 1,000 techniques about what to do to cope, and there's a lot out there. But there's nothing like the word of God that, if you get that word inside of you in your time of need, it's going to come up. Even if you can't remember and recall, it's in there. You can, like, I
Mhm.
think a month ago, I just felt myself getting a little, I'm finishing up my degree, and it's just intense right now. And I noticed I started dreaming. And I just started not being able to sleep well. And I started having these really wild dreams. And it's like, oh no, 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 no. That's a trigger. We can't, no, we can't dream like that. Cause they were destructive.
Mm.
So what I did was I got my phone out, and usually I can sleep with like the background noise. Yeah, I love water. I love the sound of water and piano. So this time I pulled up scriptures. So there are apps that'll just play scriptures all night long. And it's like, while I'm asleep, Lord, I need your word to be on guard in my heart and my mind. Because when I laid my head down, I expected sweet sleep. I prayed for sweet sleep because of
Yes,
whatever I was going through, sweet sleep wasn't happening. So I'm like, okay, devil, guess what? Got one for you. This is going to be right in my ear, and I'm going to play this. And when I tell you, changed everything, no more bad dreams. No, the word. Pull out your sword, pull it out.
that's
And
right.
so, like I said, there's a natural side, and there's so many different things like the breathing, and like I said, mindfulness and stretching, and yoga without all of the transitional meditation. But the physical part of yoga is amazing. Yeah, there's so many great things that you can do, but moving your body, exercise is tremendous. Is imperative. But praying, just praying, and having that relationship with God, that you can talk to him and say, this is my trigger. This is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling, um, whatever the trigger is, whether it's a physical or emotional, internal, this is what it is. I need you to help me. And he will. And he absolutely will.
I like that you said, that you can just go to God and say that I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling a lot of emotions. And you said it in such a calm, um,
Mm,
normal, conversational way. And
yeah.
I think that in itself is very important to highlight here tonight as well, because when we're talking about triggers and we're talking about where our help comes from, we
Mm-hmm.
know that our help comes from the Lord. But to go to God, you don't have to have a long, drawn out dissertation. You don't
No.
have to have fancy 26-letter words. You can go to God just as you are, just in a conversation like we're having
Yeah.
tonight, and say, Lord,
Yeah.
this really has me bothered.
Yeah.
I don't know what this feeling is, but I know
Yeah.
that you're able to help me.
Yeah.
Know that I can come to you when I
Yeah.
feel overwhelmed, when I feel rejected, when I feel sad, and
Mm-hmm.
you are going to help me. I
Yeah.
expect you to help me because you said that you will never leave me or forsake me.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you
it's,
are.
and you have sent us help. And so
Yeah.
it's, when we're talking about um, knowing our triggers, of being able to identify them, to be able to prevent them, and even if we don't prevent it and we are triggered, where to get help. It's very
Mm-hmm.
important that we leave you with, you can get help from God, you can
Yeah.
get help from therapy, and there is no shame in it.
No
Um, and
whatsoever.
I can't stress that enough, because we have to break the stigma. We
Mm-hmm.
have
Oh
to
yeah.
break the silence
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to our health, and especially our mental health in communities of Brown and Black people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about it more, but we're not talking about, preventing these
Mm-hmm.
these crises.
Right.
We're talking about what to do when we're in crises. We're talking about what to do after we've been triggered. But tonight
Hmm.
we're changing it up and we're breaking the stigma and we're talking about what to do to prevent a crisis. So
Yeah.
I hope that this conversation has been helpful. And Phyllis, are there any last comments that you like? Because it is a short conversation tonight due to
Yeah.
the um, and
Hmm.
it's I just want to make sure that we don't get cut
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
and
No, and
we
I'm so grateful.
access and support. Um,
Yeah.
and one I did want to highlight that the National Alliance for Mental Health is a good resource.
Hmm.
You can get help. If this conversation tonight has made you realize that there's some triggers that you've been dealing with and you just haven't recognized them and you're wanting to get help, you can reach out to your local mental health department.
Hmm.
You can find resources there as well to assist you. As Phyllis
Hmm.
gave us last month, some great resources, especially for some new mental health resources that were coming out.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. The 988 number. And July 16th is supposed to have gone live. So instead of calling 911 for like when you call an emergency for mental health, you can call 988. 988, and that will get you towards, instead of having to have dispatch 911 dispatch, you can have someone that's trained in mental health, because it's very traumatic when you're having a mental health crisis and police show up, and because they may not understand your erratic behavior, or for their safety and your safety, they'll put you in handcuffs, and so that could be very traumatic. Things like that can trigger. I always
mhm,
tell people, when someone is going through something, anytime, like, I'm a CPR instructor, so anytime I tell people, when you approach a person, never put your hands on them. Never even look like you're about to put your hands on them. You check in with them and say, hey, are you okay? I'm here to help you, kind of connect with them before you touch them, because even touching them can cause them, that could be a trigger for them.
sugar.
Okay. And so therefore now you got a situation. So definitely do that. So 988 is a number. The suicide hotline, 1-800-784-2433, 1-800-784-2433.
Yes.
The prevention, suicide prevention hotline, 1-800-273-8255. Let's
Mm,
just say you are dealing with especially a youth, and youth like to text, right? So instead of them calling, they may want to text that they're in crises. That number is 741-741, 741-741, and you can uh, they can contact someone. Another one, which is going to be crisis assistance, which basically they're like 911. They can come to your house, but they come in a white, unmarked car, so that no one knows what's going on. But they're this unmarked car that will come to wherever you are, and they will help to de-escalate what's going on. That number is 704-444-2400. 704-444-2400. And again, sometimes you just need a de-escalation. Now, this is not emergent. They're not going to come within 5 or 6 minutes. They may take 20 or 30 minutes to get there, maybe an hour. So just assess whether or not it's something that is a crisis. And a crisis is basically when someone is threatening either to harm themselves, to kill themselves, or someone else. That's a crisis. But if you're able to talk with them and they do not have suicidal ideations, and they're not wanting to harm themselves or someone, then you can, some of these other numbers will be really great to have. I basically, I have them on my phone. Okay. So that way we always have our phone. If something were to ever come
mhm,
up, you just dial, and I have it under suicide. So I know that, I can just go right to it. Mental Health America. is wonderful resource. Mental Health America. They're in Charlotte, and they have recently, as of I think last week or a week ago, have now expanded into Cabarrus County. So a lot of the services that were just for Mecklenburg County has now been expanded to Cabarrus County, and they have a tremendous amount of resources. Mental Health America, everything from parental classes, peer support, classes. I took my suicide prevention class there, mental health first aid class, which is definitely something you want to invest in the time. Mecklenburg County, at this moment, you can take mental health first aid classes for free. There's one of the nonprofits has a grant to take the mental health first aid class for free. The price value is $170, and I think most mental health first aid instructors are trying to keep it lower for you if they have to charge. But Mecklenburg has a grant to do it for free, and the benefit of it is just being able to talk about the stigma, identify the stigma, and then to have a plan of action when someone is having a mental health crisis. How do I respond? I want to respond. I want to listen. I want to assess the situation and make sure it's safe. I want to make sure they're not in a crisis situation. I want to listen non-judgmentally, and that's one we have a hard time with, especially sometimes in the body of Christ. We judge a lot, and so being able to listen to that person non-judgmentally, so that we may not be the one to help them, but we can surely be the one that can listen to hear what is going on, so that we can direct them to the help that they need. And so, but a lot of times we just want to prejudge it. We want to tell them what to do. We want to tell them how many scriptures to read, how many times to pray, how long to pray, and then they'll be just fine. That's not always the case. Okay. So really that class kind of breaks it down. It goes from over everything from anxiety on up to psychosis, and how to interact with a person that's having these mental health situations, even, hallucinations. So it's a very valuable class. It helped me to know that I would speak to the people that were in my life that were having mental health crises. I was speaking to them in a horrible way, not meaning to, but I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew what they needed. So I learned how more to say things like, "Hey, I'm concerned about you. Is there something I can do?" versus, "You just need to do this. You need to pray, and you're not going to church anyway, so that's your problem anyway because you ain't going to church." You
My
know,
God.
we do that, right? And so
It
we get all,
absolutely happens. It happens, and then,
yeah, we
more
get all
times
up
than
in,
often in the body
yeah.
of Christ, and it's
Hmm.
discouraging.
It is
Um,
discouraging.
it's discouraging because you know we we have to get back to the place where we realize and we understand that the house of faith is a hospital.
Mm,
Um,
hmm.
and God is the great physician.
Yeah,
And people are coming to the house of faith because they're needing help.
you're broken.
And yeah, broken,
Far
hurt,
too broken.
yeah, and they need help. And at one point we were them.
Yeah.
At some point we still may be
Still, I
them.
was gonna say,
Yeah, and in some areas we still may be them.
right.
But it's sad to say that there's people who've been in church for so long till it's just legalistic.
Hmm.
It's ritual. And it's not soul saving,
Hmm.
soul seeking or soul saving. And it's really discouraging because we're in a time where there's so many things. Just
Hmm.
turning on your news can
Yeah,
trigger overwhelming emotional states.
yeah,
Um, just
absolutely.
driving down the street and seeing, the state of people homeless can trigger,
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
In the world that in the times that we live in, it's we're in a world that's filled with negativity, and as the body of Christ and believers, we have to be those ones to show light, to bring
mm.
light into every environment that we enter in,
Yeah.
and positivity, because it's easy for people to be overtaken by negativity,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
especially in this day and time with everything that's going on. Gas prices, somebody can drive by with those gas prices as high as they are, and
Yeah.
that
I'm
can trigger
offended by 'em.
anxiety for them, because they may be in
Mhm.
a situation where I need gas to get to work, but I need this money to feed my family.
Yeah.
And so we have to be mindful, or we need to be mindful of, a person's
Mm.
mental state. It doesn't matter how they look,
Mhm.
or there's so many people that look like we have it all together, look like it's
Mhm.
all together, and they
Yeah.
may be suffering. And we,
Yeah.
we just need to be mindful of that, and to do our best to, if it's just a hi, how are you today, acknowledging
Mhm.
people.
Exactly.
Just getting back to acknowledging someone, because most
Mhm.
of it is presence.
Yeah.
um
Ooh,
and
yeah.
especially
Mm.
for someone who has been triggered, um or has experienced trauma. Presence
Mhm.
is important.
Yeah.
Judgmental free presence is very
D
important.
and that's a whole nother, and I'm so glad you said that about being present. Because it's when we're present that first of all, we got to be present with ourselves. We've got to learn how to slow down long enough to be present with ourselves. But because we have so much junk going on in the side of our own heads, that if we get quiet, then we start realizing some of the things that kind of make us the triggers that are in us, and we don't want to hear it. So we just move on. And sometimes we try to move on to help other people. And we, kind of prematurely, we need to step back, be present with
Mhm.
ourselves, be present with the Lord, so that He can help us to overcome those things, so that we are better equipped
Yes.
to help others. And I love Jackie and Miss Ann's questions, because they were very open and vulnerable about what things are inside of them that are triggers, and that is it right there. If you can acknowledge your own trigger, it's going to slow you down enough to have empathy about someone else's trigger, and allow you to see them in a different way, so that maybe there's something you can say or do or direct them to, and just understand, because sometimes people can offend you because of their triggers. But if you don't take offense, if you don't have if you don't take offense and just get to understand what's happening, you may see that person is really hurt. And as you were talking about some of the triggers, I just kept coming up with more triggers. I kept coming up with, ooh, what about this? And ooh, what about that? Oh my goodness. I think for as many people that are on this earth, that's how many triggers that you could possibly deal with on a
Mhm.
regular basis. So be open.
Absolutely.
Be open. Don't don't be tunnel vision. When you approach a person and you're with a person, don't try to fit them into a mold. You've got to just be open to what their reality is, and you may not agree with their reality. You may be offended by their reality. You may be indifferent about their reality, but you still have to acknowledge their reality. If someone is having, let's just say, hallucinations, you don't dive into the hallucination. You don't give credit to the hallucination. You just you acknowledge that the person is having it. This is honestly what they see. This is honestly what they're hearing. That gives them credibility, and gives them. I mean, it acknowledges that, hey, I see what you are feeling. I understand that this has got to be devastating for you. You don't have to say, oh yeah, I see that there are, green men over there too. You don't do that. You don't talk them in or out of their hallucination,
You
because it's real.
acknowledge.
Yeah, it's real to them. And that's just like anything else, regardless of what the trigger is, whether it is being an introvert, that's real. And if you are not okay with who you are as an introvert, it could be a trigger. It can make you feel some kind of way. If you feel the rejection, it can make you feel some kind of way. So we don't judge it. We don't judge how you feel about it. We just know that this is the thing. This is the thing that is hindering you from feeling at peace with what where God would have you to be. And so I'm a listening ear. I'm here to hear, I'm here to listen. And then maybe there's a resource I can direct you to or something. So
Yes.
yeah.
And sort of, and I think, the word to take away is acknowledge. Um,
Acknowledge. Hmm.
yes, acknowledge. We have to acknowledge where we are.
Yeah.
And it's the same if we are the ones who are being triggered. Um, Acknowledge,
Hmm.
sister, you make it, you're triggering some feelings in me, and I just need to let you know
Mm.
that you're triggering it.
Yeah.
And if you are being triggered, it's okay to remove yourself. Um,
Yes. Amen.
it's okay to remove yourself from the situation,
Mm.
because the last thing you want to do is to remain there for
Hmm.
the sake of someone else's feelings, and
Yeah.
then you are overwhelmed and you're struggling for the next week or month or 2 months, 3 months or a year,
Mm.
because you did not remove yourself from the situation.
Mm.
um,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
and
Yes, Lord.
so remember, just remember, your mental health is your wealth. Your
Amen.
mental health is important. It matters.
Amen.
And
Amen.
so take the time to acknowledge what triggers you, what your stressors are, and do your best. Put a plan in place.
Hmm.
Identify, make a plan,
Hmm.
seek help,
Yes.
get help with
Hmm.
the triggers.
Hmm.
And so this is going to conclude. We said we're going to cut it short, but we're right at an hour. And to God be the glory. I guess God said we need to have this conversation tonight.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at the power surges.
Yeah. Because I hear the thunder. The thunder's rolling, right?
It's still rolling. But we thank
Hmm.
God for this conversation, and I thank God for Phyllis being with us
Yeah.
tonight. Um,
Amen.
and that we have had a candid conversation. It wasn't over the top, it's just real.
It
And we
is.
have to get to the place where we are real, we are vulnerable, and we are
Hmm.
um, transparent about the
Hmm.
things that we are dealing with, because no one is designed to handle everything on their own. We were not
Hmm.
created in this world to do everything and to manage everything by ourselves.
Right. And
Help
don't.
is not a negative word. It
Yeah.
really isn't. We need to
It's
break the
not.
stigma around the word help and put
Hmm.
it back at a place where it's relevant. It's
Amen.
widely sought and it's widely given. And Phyllis, leave your closing remarks and we're going to say good night.
I don't think if I had say another closing remark, we're gonna be on here about another 30 minutes. I got so much in my brain. But I think overall, thank you, and thank you again for this opportunity to continue to share, because health is so important to me, mental health as well as physical health. It's important to me. It's important for me to share as much as I've learned, as much as I know. Because a lot of times I just feel like sometimes health information sometimes can be out of the reach
Mm-hmm.
of certain populations' hands.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of times it's always a money factor that's added to it. So sometimes people don't have the access just to the plain information that could change a person's life, and it doesn't, and that doesn't have to be a charge for it. It's information, but we need, I mean, the world was not without information. We got tons of information, but the knowledge, and that's what I want to do. That's what MHD is about, is making the knowledge accessible. God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, and I don't
Yes.
want that to happen. I don't want it to happen to me and my family. Therefore, I'm also going to spread as much knowledge as I know regarding health. I believe that's what I am called to do, is just to, you know, I'll do all the reading. I'll do, and then I'll share as much as I can. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm growing. I'm developing. We'll have classes. We'll continue the Healthy Woman series. I just, and give yourself some space. Give yourself space. Give yourself space to work it out. Sometimes we don't want to say no to people. Sometimes we want to be in the know. We want to be included. all those things. But sometimes give yourself space to work it out, and don't just say, "Oh, I'm going to take a month off." Whatever God tells you to do, that's what you do. If you got to just give yourself space from social media, from people, from I don't know anything, do it. It's okay. I in 2021 I gave myself space, and I'm almost finished with it. I'm not done. It's almost been a year that I purposely allowed God to put me in a place where I can make Him first, and I can work out my triggers. I can work out those things that are true in me, and it's taken some time. So it's not a all quick process. It's His process. So just allow Him to do the work.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us for She's Healthy Woman segment. Remember, your health is your wealth, not only physical, but your mental health as well. You all have a
Amen.
wonderful, wonderful evening, and thank you for viewing tonight.
Amen.
Be blessed.